We started Switch4Good with the vision to disrupt societal norms around dairy foods. Big dairy has been lying to all of us for far too long, and we are here to set the record straight. It's our mission to address the destruction caused by this non-essential industry that's robbing us of our health, robbing mother cows of their calves, and robbing our children of a safe, equitable future. We battle big dairy by creating widespread change through our 4 pillars: improved human health, enhanced everyday performance, dietary justice, and planetary responsibility. Whether it's educating the public with our innovative billboard and digital campaigns, fighting to get millions of underprivileged children plant-based milk in schools, working to change food policy at corporations like Starbucks and the International Olympic Committee, we're educating millions of people about the benefits of ditching dairy. Your generous tax-deductible donations fuel our trailblazing campaigns and help us keep the hard-earned positive momentum going. Mark my word, dairy will be the first animal-based food to topple, setting a cascade effect for all others to follow. Don't you want to be a part of this monumental effort? We need your support to move the needle, though, and change millions more lives. Won't you donate now to change the world for good? No amount is too small. Thank you for all you do, and happy holidays.
She talked about dry brushing. And so I've always done it as a way to detox sort of your skin is such a big organ, et cetera, et cetera. Right, so right. Before a shower, I remember you said, yeah, I do it before I go to bed.
Yeah, I did try that. And the routine lasted for like four nights, but I did do it. And I was doing it before I went to bed. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of gross. It's probably getting all over the carpet, like microscopic, nasty skin pieces or something. All right, here we are again. Here you all are again. Welcome to the Switch4Good podcast. I'm Dotsie and Alexandra is with me. And Miss Thing had an idea for today's show. It only includes the two of us. So if you were hoping to hear from a brilliant guest, it's just us. So you can tune out now if you don't want to hear our back and forth banter. But I do think that we have some fun stuff lined up, don't we, Alexandra? What are we doing today?
Well, I thought maybe a show with us would be fun. I've interviewed you and you've interviewed me, and people can go back and find those shows for sure to learn about our backgrounds. But this is more about like where we are now, because, you know, the audience hears us all the time asking questions of guests, and sometimes we tell stories and things, but this is just a deeper dive into sort of as if we were guests. So talking about health and aspirations and, you know, work and things like that. It's a lot like as if we're guests on our own show, Dotsie. Plus, I want to know more about you. So there, we've been friends for 5 years, but it's not enough. I want to know more. So
I love it. I love it.
Anyway, I thought since, you know, of course, this is a healthy lifestyle show that
right.
Maybe the audience would like to know some of our health stuff that helps us like feel good and look as good as we can. And so why don't we start with the health thing, and I'll start with the question. So
yes, do. And we're going to do a little bit of a routine, and you're very, very much a person of routines, and I'm kind of anti-routine in a way. So I think this is going to be interesting as we kind of line up our health routines here.
Yeah. And hopefully, because it's the end of the year, some people might get some tidbits from us, you know, things that we do might work well for them in next year. So, okay, I'm going to ask the first question for you. And what do you do every day to keep you balanced and happy?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm a little bit of an anti-routine. So I don't have like I do these 3 things every morning, or these 3 things, you know, every night before bed or whatnot. But when I was thinking about just routines in general and was just thinking about my day, I realized I did have a couple of things that do happen every day that keep me, they do keep me get balanced. They keep me grateful as well, which I think is an important part to being balanced. One of them is movement, which is very different than, you know, a vigorous, intense exercise that I was doing as an elite athlete. I just have this desire to just move my body in a healthy way every day. So that could be anything. It could be stand-up paddling. It could be hiking with my dog Chula, which is like my favorite thing to do, mountain biking with my husband, doing Pilates, which is really, really, really inexpensive down here in Mexico, which is why I'm into it so much right now, because I can't afford the privates in California. So digging that. So definitely some kind of movement that just makes me sweat. I love that experience of feeling like I'm just recycling all the juices, And the other thing I realize I do fairly intentionally is hug my husband and my dog. And we don't just hug, we do a heart hug. So we hug so that both of our hearts are together. And sometimes my husband and I'll take a few extra beats and do some breathing. And those happen just randomly throughout the day. We both work from home. So if I just run into him in the kitchen, we'll do a heart hug. And then something I started, which is a routine, I will say, I don't know, a few years ago, was I wanted to start doing something nice for just somebody every day, because it's easy to have a day pass and not. And so it's either in email or in person. Being down here in Mexico, it's more email, but just somebody that I know somewhere out there in the world. And I will just say, I'm thinking about you, or what do you need? Or I love you. That's been a really healthy routine for me to stay in. So what about you?
I think I've been the recipient of some of those. So thank you, because they are so beautiful and helpful. So thank you. That's a great thing to do. I actually, in terms of movement, because I'm more regimented, I do exercise every day. It's actually 6 days a week of exercise. And then the seventh day I need to move. Otherwise I don't feel good. So for me, it would be, at least an hour of cardio. And then ideally it would be lifting weights a few times a week for my bones. And I love to walk. I haven't been able to walk as much here in Oregon where I moved, because I can't be far from my car in case my mother needs me. So I haven't felt as comfortable walking as much now. So I would say that. And then we actually, funny that you say gratitude, you mentioned gratitude, because I thought, that's so funny that Dotsie said gratitude, because each night Ian and I think I might have mentioned this on a show, but we do a gratitude thing where we each ask each other, what are you grateful for? And then what are things that you did well today? So that, because a lot of times we'll self-talk about how we didn't do this, we didn't do that. And Ian is a really positive person, but I'm more apt to go, I didn't do this. And so he added that to our routine. So we do that every night before we go to sleep.
That is incredible. I remember you saying that, and I remember going, I want to add that in. And then I remember not doing that. So now that it's a second time, I have a second chance to do that with Kirk. I really love that, because we beat ourselves up, don't we? Just humans in general, that we're not good enough and we're not doing it well enough or right enough. And I think that's important to say, no, we are, we're doing our best.
I've always been interested, speaking of right before bed, how you sleep. You have like a 9-hour sleep thing. Do you sleep well? Because a lot of people don't. Do you have anything that you do that helps you sleep?
Yeah, that's so true. So it seems like so many people are afflicted with not being able to sleep fully and deeply enough and thoroughly. But I just have, I don't know when it's going to change. Maybe when menopause hits or something. I'm sure all the women out there are like, yes, that's going to get you your sleep nightmares.
It is true. As someone who's been through menopause.
So I'm waiting, but I just have always slept like a rock for some reason. And I just... I'm lucky that I don't have to set an alarm, and I just wake up after 9 hours. So it just depends on when I went to bed. But so sleep is not a struggle. I've got other struggles, but that's not one of them. What about you with sleep?
When Ian's not here, I will tend to stay up way too late working. But when he's here, he needs 8 hours starting before 10. So, 8 hours, if you went to bed at midnight to 8, that doesn't do it to him. It's got to be so that it's like 10 to 6. So we get to bed between 9. We get to turn off the light between 9 and 10. And then we're up at 5:30, 6, that kind of thing. Our cat wakes us up too if we're not up at a certain time. Last night I did not sleep well. I took melatonin in the night, and it seems to help me. And I don't know if it's psychological or not. I think there's mixed feelings about melatonin for folks, but And then, of course, as a woman I've been taking hormones since I was 46. So for 14 years, and that really helps sleep. The estrogen and progesterone. I think it's the progesterone that it does it. So that helps a lot. But I get up a couple times to pee. So now I'm not when I was a kid, I would sleep all the way through every night.
Yeah. I pee like 15 times a night. And I don't know why that doesn't disrupt it. So with the hormones since 46, what was your experience of menopause, if any?
Oh, so I started taking hormones at 46 because my mood just changed and I got depressed. I was anxious. I was triggered. I mean, I think I've told this story too. We've been doing this for so long. I've told a lot of stories, but where I was in the kitchen and I slammed a kitchen cupboard, and Ian's standing there and he says, "Who are you?" And I said, "I don't know who I am." And then my friend Daphne said, "You know what? You need try hormones." And it really did help me so much in terms of feeling even keeled and just happier, not depressed. I went on at 46. I believe in hormones, and I think people should look into it because there was a big scare in the 80s about hormones causing a lot of problems. But that study was done on women who were in their 60s and who already had a lot of health problems. So they didn't, study was very biased. And so I'm very confident about taking hormones, but of course everyone should into it themselves.
And it's quality of life. So then back to menopause, did you kind of not experience it maybe 46, it was perimenopause that you were experiencing?
Yeah, I was in perimenopause.
And so then it leveled it out. So you didn't really notice the big menopause shift, hot flashes, irritability, all the things that people, talk about.
Well, that was it comes in perimenopause. Menopause is technically a year after your last period.
Okay.
So it can be a 10-year period, menopause and perimenopause. It's all kind of mixed up. I'm not exact. So maybe I was starting menopause, and I had my period till I was in my 50s, actually. So I only had a few hot flashes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah. Yeah, that mitigated that. We kind of both mitigated through, because I am on Depo-Provera and have been for 14, 15, maybe 16 years. And it's one of those hormones that anytime you say that, everyone's like, "Oh, that's awful." As far as they've tried it or a friend has tried it, it's a shot of progesterone only 4 times a year. And it completely shuts down your ovaries. So you have no cycle whatsoever. And so I always say, it's like I'm a dude. I have no mood swings. The whole 30-day cycle doesn't happen every 30 days. So there's no ups, there's no downs, there's no depression, there's no funkiness, there's no cramps, there's no bleeding, there's nothing. I was experiencing a lot of trouble taking the birth control pill. I just can't take any estrogen. Maybe I can later, but it was really bad. And it was especially bad as a professional athlete because it was making me, I don't know if you want to say like more female natured, but like I would be in the Peloton when I was racing on the road. And I started realizing that I was going, "Oh, no, it's okay. You go ahead. Oh, no, please go ahead in front of me." I'm like racing my bike to the finish line. I'm like, "Okay, hold on a minute. This is not good." Right. I mean, you got to fight for your spot in the Peloton. You got to fight for the finish line. So it's like, that started happening, and I was having crazy mood swings and all the stuff that came along with that can come along with taking estrogen. I went to see my gynecologist and I was like, "I'm going to lose my job as a professional because I'm literally too nice in the Peloton." So she said, "Let's try something that is the progesterone only." And it's just worked for so many years. So I don't know if I'm going to experience perimenopause or menopause. And since I haven't had my cycle for 15 years, I won't know, right? It's not going to stop because it's already stopped. So I don't know. It's like my gynecologist laughed and she said that I would know. But I said, "Well, how am I going to know? Because I'm on Depo. It should be just fine." She's like, "Oh, that's cute. You'll know."
Oh, really? Okay.
So I don't know what that means. So I don't know what I'm going to,
gosh. Yeah, no,
happen.
I didn't have anything. I felt great since, but being on the hormones. So since then I didn't have anything. I was sad to lose my period actually, because I always loved having my period.
Wait a minute. What? I've never heard anyone say that in my entire life.
My family says I celebrated my period, which I did. It was like, oh, good. Like out of 28 days, something different's happening. That's how I looked at it. Like, oh,
I'm bleeding in my underpants. Oh my gosh.
I did. I really liked it.
Wow.
So, yeah. All right. So we should move on, because there might be people here who are like in their 20s going, I don't care about this stuff.
I don't care. There's also probably some men.
There'll be a lot of other stuff, hormones and stuff that I can. Okay. I have a question for you about, so we've interviewed like 250 people, and I'm wondering, was there anyone that you've changed or added in something because you've learned something from our podcast?
Right. Yes. I know that is a really good question for you, because I think you've done like almost everything that they've ever suggested in the history of the show. I have done some. I think what I've learned the most is, and this sounds a little cliche because it's a health show and a lot of eating talk, but how critical it is to eat a plethora of different types of plants and a lot of them. It's not eat some plants, eat for optimum health, right? If we're going for optimum. I didn't realize before the show how important it is, the volume of the plants. And I really have upped those. I like them. I think they taste good. And I like, experimenting with different types of plants and different ways to make them and everything. But that has been a resounding theme, especially from doctors, anti-cancer doctors like Dr. Christy Funk, that really kind of has rung home for me through the 257 or something like that guest.
I also learned about how important a varied diet was from Dr. B, who we've had on the show several times. And I've learned a lot about the microbiome, to tend to the microbiome. So having that really helps the microbiome. And I've added fermented foods into my diet, which I never really liked. And now I do like them, actually. I eat a little bit of fermented food every day. Just and I think of Dr. B when I do it. And then of course, that I dry brush, which is, brushing before, which Chef Babette, I think, was it Chef Babette or?
No, it was Karen.
Oh, it was Karen, who was she was raw and stuff. She,
I'm blank on her last name right now, but yeah.
Yeah. She talked about dry brushing. And so I've always done it as a way to detox sort of your skin is such a big organ, et cetera, et cetera. Before a shower, I remember you said, yeah, I do it before I go to bed.
Yeah, I did try that. And the routine lasted for like four nights, but I did do it. And I was doing it before I went to bed. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of gross. It's probably getting all over the carpet, like microscopic, nasty skin pieces or something. Like, I'm going to stop.
And another thing that I started, was green tea, because people talked to, your interview with Dr. William Lee, he talked about Akkermansia, which is once again for the biome, it's a probiotic. And so it's hard to get, but I did purchase some, and I do take it every day with my vitamins. So those are some things. Oh, and I was mouth taping before, but we had James Nestor on. On a show called Breath, about his book Breath, and he talked about taping your mouth at night so that you breathe through your nose, which is was definitely a mouth breather before, so I do that to this day. So those are just some of the things that I've learned,
and it works.
I think it works a lot. Yeah.
Are you getting deeper, better, full sleep, and did you measure it somehow? Or do you just feel better when you wake up?
It's supposed to be helpful, because if you breathe through your mouth, then your saliva dries up, and saliva is really important to keep the bacteria away from your teeth. So it helps with that. I noticed that I think I feel better. I sleep better, definitely, when I tape my mouth. In the beginning, it gets weird. And if I have a cold, of course I don't, because my nose is too stuffy.
Yeah.
But I definitely sleep better. And a friend of mine whose husband was snoring, he did it and his snoring went away because, you kind of snore through your mouth for the most part. So if you're forced to breathe through your nose, you're less apt to snore. So it really helped there. I, of course, don't snore. No, my husband says I purr. And I say, honey, is that snoring, right? No, honey, you purr. So I don't know.
Oh my God.
It's
a cat lady. It's a cat. That's a good suggestion for people whose spouses say they're, snoring too much before they try, or go in and get tested for sleep apnea, et cetera, it's so simple to try the mouth taping 1 or 2 nights and see if things change. What do you do in this health realm? We can't leave out stress, good old stress. Do you have something specific or even a routine since it's you in how you cope when great stress comes on?
I'd like to say I meditate, but I have never fit meditation into my routine. I don't handle stress well, so I really make a lot of effort to not have as little of it in my life as possible, which is, of course, can't have no stress, and some stress is good for you. I try and deal with things early so that they don't build up and cause stress. That's my biggest solution. I don't leave things to the last minute. Never have. In fact, a lot of times I do things too soon, which is called precrastination, apparently. And it's good in a lot of ways, but it can be bad in some because sometimes things are not supposed to be done right away. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, and then Ian, my husband, is such an amazing help to me. And a lot of times it's kind of like your heart hug, but we breathe together and that calms me. Breathing with somebody else breathing. Maybe it's kind of like a meditation, and that lowers my feelings of stress.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
I think it really does. I just was thinking we should have somebody on that's it works in the science of mitigating stress and talk about breathing together with someone that you love. Right. Because it's very intimate. I mean, I wouldn't want to just breathe with anyone close to, but it's when Kirk and I do that, there is something where it's just like poof, goes away, whatever it is that is so heavy. And
that breathing thing, by the way, I first heard about it for sexual reasons. If you want to get in sync with your partner before having sex, it will help you if you breathe together, because sometimes one person is on a different level, a different pace, or a different desire. And then if you breathe together, then you can sort of get yourself on the same page, which can help.
That is very cool. That is, I was also, when you said precrastination, and then there's obviously procrastination, it made me think about yours and my different routines with preparing for the podcast. And since you really plan ahead of time, right? I don't know if I'd call it precrastination. It's just you. I mean, that's when, and you oftentimes will prepare on like Sunday when we're going to record on a Tuesday. And I just learned this about myself over probably the last 20 years. I do a lot better when I prepare for something very close to the event. Now, if I have to write a big speech or keynote or something, I mean, I can't write it that morning, but most things, meetings, employee reviews, the podcast, I mean, things like that, I do much better if I prepare the morning of. It's fresher. I'm pinging with ideas and they translate to the actual event 2 hours, 3 hours later, 4 hours later, whatever it is. If I do it beforehand, if I did it like on Sunday, I get very distracted and then the stuff will leave my mind. I'll think of something and then I won't write it down and then it won't come up. I just feel just so much more ready to go. And anytime I record something that's not a conversation like this, if I have to really nail something, I nail it the first time. And the second take and the third take and the fourth take, I mess up. Like it's like the team sometimes is like, you're a one-hit wonder. Like, don't ask you to do it again because it's going to be terrible. Like, it's just like that. So I'm mentioning that because I think that all of us feel like, oh, really need to prepare for this. And I'm not prepared if I don't do it a million days before or whatever. Cut themselves some slack and check in. And maybe you are like me, where it actually is you're more heightened and ready. Your readiness score would be really high, let's say, if you prepare closer to what you have to present or do. I found that works so much better for me.
Well, that brought to mind what an example of when being a procrastinator isn't good. When I was in high school, I used to get so far ahead in the reading that I forgot what the teacher was bringing up in class. And a lot of it was a fear of getting behind. But I think you're right. I mean, I'm done by Sunday with my research and my questions and all that for the podcast. I do look at them on the day that we tape, which is Tuesday. But yeah, I probably do miss some things that I was really jazzed by on, when I was doing the research, that because it was 5 days before. Well,
so
I don't. There are pros and cons to both things, right?
Yeah. It's like just figuring out who you are and what works best for you. Like what makes. When I was thinking about stress too and coping, and just tough times. One thing that has helped me immensely is allowing a bad day to be a bad day, and stop trying to make it not a bad day. Search for the learning in it is a great way to go, or just be. And I've been working on this for a while, but it probably kind of ran into this way of living maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And because I think we all have a tendency to, if you wake up and it's the day just starts out bad, we spend the rest of the day trying to turn it around instead of just letting it be a bad day. Oh, it's so freeing. It's just like, it's a little blue, because it would be so boring if all the days were the exact same.
Yes.
Yeah. So just leaning into a bad day. I've been writing about that some in my book on just allowing it to be whatever it is. So we're always trying to change things to, let's make it this way or that way, or make it better or happier. It's like, oh, it's just not a happy day. And then the next day or whatever day after that, there's a happy day. It's a really happy day because you allow yourself to experience the feelings of a bad day.
Speaking of your book, folks who haven't heard, because we have mentioned it throughout the shows, but Dotsie is writing her autobiography, right? Is it an autobiography, or it's a little different?
It's a prescriptive memoir. So it's a memoir, but it's a little David Goggins-y, but totally different, with just like, and then here's how to kind of apply some of the things that I've learned. So it's a little prescriptive, not a lot prescriptive, not as strong as his is in prescription. But yes, it's also the longest journey ever. It's what I'm on 3 years in. But when we had that wonderful, you weren't there for the recording, but the woman who kayaked the Amazon.
Oh, yes.
From mouth to exit, or I'm not saying it the right way, but Darcy Geckner. So she wrote a book and it took 6 years. And so I said, I'm so glad to hear that, because I'm on year 3 and we're just at the proposal part, where now we're going to try and, the agents will be trying to sell it in January. I have a co-author, which has been probably still the only reason I'm still in it, because she has been a blast to work with. And I have learned so much from her, and it's just been fun. So if the book never went anywhere, it's been the greatest journey doing this alongside her and having her guidance. So we'll see if it sells. But I feel like we've written like 3/4 of the book.
Yeah.
Not, just because you just do so much work to get that proposal ready for the publishers.
I know it will sell. It will sell. So, and speaking of books, tell us some books either that you're reading now or that have touched you, that our audience might read for inspiration or just enjoyment. You don't read fiction, so you read nonfiction.
Right. That's true. You have a good memory. I want to hear yours too. But I'm in the middle of Necessary Trouble right now, which is about a girl who is now a woman, Drew Faust. And it is about growing up in mid-century. And she's a privileged white girl in a very conservative, very segregated Virginia. And, she was expected to, adopt just kind of a blindness to all the inequities of race and all the constraints of gender and everything. She was just supposed to, wear a dress and be pretty and do what's right. But she just had a real counterculture personality. And so she did not do that and fought back and forged a path of her own, a path of her own. And it's riveting, the story. And I won't go any further because people just want to read what happens, but the name was something that John Lewis used before he died in a speech, that it's necessary to make trouble, right? Or we don't have change. And so right before she died, she asked him if she could name her book Necessary Trouble. So that's where the name comes from.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. She was the first female. This is not an important part if you're going to read the book, and I'm not spoiling anything. She's the first female president of Harvard University.
Oh.
She just retired, but she went on to, break barriers.
Cool. That sounds like a great book.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm reading 2 books. I toggle because I borrow books from the library on my Libby app. They often I have so many. I hear of a book and I put it in, and then it arrives, and I only have 3 weeks to read it, and I've still got 3 other books in line. So I toggle between 2. The most recent are Going Infinite by Michael Lewis. I've read so many of his books, maybe all of them, is about Sam Bankman-Fried, who is the NFT guy who is facing a prison sentence for. It's about his character and about him. And so it's interesting. I picked it up because it's Michael Lewis, and I really wanted to learn more about he's so good at anything financial, explaining it to the lay person. So he's got several books like that is so interesting, even though they're all about the financial world, something I wouldn't think I'd be interested in, but he made them good. And the other one it's called It's Okay, You're Not Okay. And it's by a woman named Meg Devine. And the reason I'm reading it is because I know somebody who lost her husband this year way too early, very quickly, of cancer. And her grief is something I don't know how to handle. I don't know how to handle because I've never felt really, really deep grief. So she recommended this book. Apparently, I wanted to know how to help people. I'm sure that in my life, there's going to be more people losing their spouses and their loved ones, and we certainly lose parents. And I just wanted to know. So it's really good, actually. It's written by a woman who she herself lost her fiance in a drowning accident, and she was a therapist, and she realized, oh my God, I didn't know how to deal with people grieving because I didn't know what grief was until I experienced it. And so. Yeah. So
what have you learned to help your friend?
Well, mostly to listen and not give any, it's mostly about listening and giving her space to grieve. I think we have a judgment that people should be getting through it. Like, how come you're not through it yet? And just allowing her to be who she is. Grieving, people grieve differently. And I think this might be one of the reasons why couples are very apt to break up after the death of their child, because they each maybe grieve differently and they can't find each other. God, it must be so devastating. Anyway, that was a big thing. And the platitudes that you might want to say, which is, at least he was not in pain, or at least she had a great life. All those things really can be very painful for people. So it's better just to listen and hear what they have to say and allow them to be who they are in their grief. It might not be the way you grieve. That
goes back to just seemingly as a society, we just want everything to be okay. And it probably goes back to survival, right?
Talks about that. Yeah, we're uncomfortable with other people's pain, so we want to try and make it go.
Or our own. Yeah.
And our own.
Yeah.
And our own. She does. Right. It's also a book written for the person grieving and for friends of the person grieving. So it's a book for both, especially the beginning where it's so horrifying and disorienting and devastating, where no one really knows what to do. And the books are all about getting on with your life. And this book is not about how to get on with your life. It's about how to be in the moment with your pain and grief. So it was good. I'm glad that she recommended it.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. That's going to help some people listening who need a book like that.
I'd love to talk about like a little bit about your career, if unless you have something else about.
No, I'd love to just, yeah. And I want to talk about yours. We could move into work, that pesky thing we all have to do, most of us anyway, right? Right. To make a living. Yeah.
Hey, friends and listeners of the Switch for Good podcast. Yep, that's you. I have some really exciting news. Dotsie and I have started a Switch for Good podcast Facebook group. We created it so we can build a community of fans that will help us improve the show and deliver on the topics that you want to learn more about. So we want to hear what your favorite content is, what you want more of, and what you want less of. And if you like the length of the show, Dotsie and I are always talking about the length of the show, right, Dotsie?
Yes.
We want to tailor our show around the needs and desires of our incredible listeners, almost 500,000 of you. And it's really simple to join. Just go to our Switch for Good Facebook page. That's Switch, the number 4, and then Good. And then click on groups. And there we are, the Switch for Good podcast chat. You can post directly in the group, share ideas, talk to other listeners, and connect with like-minded folks. So go, run, join our Facebook group and tell us what you want.
People might not know. They know probably that you're an Olympian, that you won a silver in the London Games in cycling, but they don't know that you were an 8-time national champion. I mean, that's amazing. Among other accolades and accomplishments that you've had on the track and cycling. So I just wondered if you could share a little bit about anything. Like, people think, oh, she's an Olympian, she must be just the most amazing athlete. And they don't see that, no, some things they're hard. It's not just the daily training. Sometimes you have to overcome your own weaknesses. And I'm wondering if you can share with us something you're really proud of that you weren't good at, that you overcame.
So many things in cycling I was not good at and I had to overcome. I came into the sport in such an unconventional way, meaning that I was much older than most sports people who start a sport and then do it professionally and make it to the Olympic Games. I was 26 when I picked up a bike, and it was the last vehicle to recovery from my eating disorder. So I picked it up a little bit on a whim, just from the suggestion of my therapist, to start moving my body in a healthy way again. And I fell deeply in love with riding a bike, not the sport, just riding a bike.
Yeah, you were a messenger, weren't you? A bike messenger? Ian thinks that's like the coolest thing ever.
Well, that was a little bit later. Like, I literally just got a bike and started riding and just fell in love with riding my bike. Then I did what kind of started it all. I just said, I'm riding my bike so much, I want to do something good with riding my bike. So I decided to sign up for the California AIDS ride, which at the time you had to raise $1,200 to enter it from San Francisco to Los Angeles. And it's a 500-mile route. They don't take a direct route. I think it was actually 600 miles. I thought I was going to die raising the money. It just was so much money. It still is, but this was 1998. And so I did that California AIDS ride, and it's on the road. So everybody had a road bike, but I was on a mountain bike. And I guess I was, staying with some of the fast men, throughout the journey. And so at the end, a couple of them said, it's a little odd that you're on a mountain bike and that you just started riding and you're, able to stay up there in the front of the peloton with us. I think you should try a race or something. And it was just like, I don't know, where do I do a race? Do I need a license? Anyway, long story short, I tried a race, and then I fell in love with cycling as a sport and as a competition. And that's when I decided to answer your question of what I was really bad at was the technical side of cycling. Because all of the racers that I was racing against, they had picked up a bike at 10, or 15 at the latest. So picking it up at 26, I was I terrorized everyone that I was in the race with, because I was racing competitively on the road for a good 10 years before I switched over to track. So you're in a tight peloton, if people don't know it well, think like Tour de France, type of stage races and stuff. So
yeah, so you're so close, your handlebars are
right.
inches.
Yeah, centimeters.
So if you don't know how to ride your bike technically, you can cause a huge crash and everyone will not respect you at all.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what happened. So just sort of, I had to really overcome the fear that I had of not ever being able to become technically sound. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it fast enough. So that was scary. And then I also realized quite early on, the what drove me into the eating disorder was some of my perfectionistic traits. And I really had to learn that the longevity in the sport would come from flexibility and focus. If I could focus on only my best that I could give in each moment or in each day and not looking too far ahead. I saw throughout my career so many really talented athletes come and go because they were perfectionist, and that's not life. And it certainly isn't sport, and it's not professional sport. You lose way more than you win. And I figured out somewhat early, probably from all my years in therapy, that this perfectionistic nature and that drive to just do everything right all the time was going to burn me out. And I wouldn't have any longevity in the sport. So I had to overcome that.
And the technical part, how did you overcome it?
I got a job as a bike messenger, literally to improve my skills. Because, you have to be pretty skilled out there. You're whooping from place to place. You're downtown Los Angeles. There's cars everywhere. There's stoplights. There's stop signs. There's a lot going on. And you're, paid on getting the package. This is back in the day when you needed this, and there weren't even fax machines to get the package there was always law firms as fast as you could. And I was the only female out of, there was about 40 male bike messengers. And I knew that they would push me. I knew that they would also help me, and they would encourage me, and they taught me to jump curbs and do things that were scary. And so it worked as far as like picking up some skills. I also needed endurance, and I needed endurance quickly. And as we know, and by nature, the definition of endurance, it doesn't come quickly. You actually have to really build it into your cardiovascular system and your muscular system. So I lived in Venice, and I would ride 25 miles to downtown Los Angeles, messenger all day, and then ride the 25 miles home. So I'd messenger about 12 miles a day. So that was 62 miles a day. So I kind of like fed two birds with one seed. It was like I was getting the endurance training in that I needed, and then the skills messenger. So I messengered for probably almost a year or a little over. And it was very cool. The skills.
What a brilliant, you got your 10,000 hours in.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
also,
some. No, absolutely. Exactly. Yeah. I think it's terrifying even thinking about being an actress. What was the first moment that were you performing in your living room when you were 2? Like, how did you fall in love with it? How did you know that that's what you wanted to pursue?
No, I was not performing at 2. My family was very much not a creative family. We went to museums. We didn't create art. We were, we read books. There was nothing about writing, although my sister now is a professional writer. So it's kind of ironic that we both ended up in creative areas. But yeah, so what happened is that I was modeling in New York after graduating from high school and taking a year off before going to college. And my modeling agent said, we'd like to send you on commercials. Go take an acting class. Oh. And I'm like, okay. And I took this acting class and I just fell in love with acting, just loved it. Oh my God, drove my sister crazy with me, trying to do characters all the time and terrible. Just like I was like a born again Christian in terms of acting and stuff. Yeah, I fell in love. And but I still thought, oh no, but I'm not really that. That's just because modeling wasn't a full time. It wasn't going to be my huge career. I was just doing it for a year, and then I was going to go to college. So I didn't think, oh, right away I'm going to be an actress. But then I I guess I got a job as an actor. I starred in a TV movie about models, which is the perfect segue because I knew about modeling and I had
Oh my
started
gosh.
acting. I'd never been in front of a camera acting.
Was that your first audition or like your 20th audition when you got that part?
Oh, I think it was. I also screen tested for a soap opera. I remember, and Kevin Bacon's wife got the part. What's her name? Kira Sedgwick got the part in the end. Yeah. So I guess I don't think I went on very many auditions, but when you're young, I was 17 and then turned 18 and I looked younger. So the pool is smaller. And I think that really helped my career that I started young. And that's one of the reasons I ended up not going to college was that I decided 3 weeks before that if I went to college and I was 21, oh my God, that was so old, which is hilarious now that I'm 60 and I'm looking back. But I certainly was able to, take advantage of me being over 18 so they could work me like an adult, but I could play characters who were 16. I think that gave me an edge. That's how I basically then just decided, you know what, I'm going to keep going till this train stops. And luckily for me, it didn't. And I really loved it. Loved it. Yeah.
And you've been in over 75 films and TV shows. And
over 100, actually. I've starred in 75.
Oh my gosh. That is a difference, isn't it? Right. So I don't think about that. I just always think you're the star. But yeah, I guess you had some side roles from here to there around along the way. Can you pick a favorite out of starring in so many?
I have to say that there's not a single one where I had a bad experience. I really,
wow,
so fortunate. And, I was cold or tired or, insecure or whatever, but overall it was a joy to be on these sets. I really loved shooting Baywatch. I never wanted to do a series in my 20s. I swore to myself, I wouldn't commit to anything, not a tattoo, not a man, or not a series. But I did. Well, I didn't commit to a man until my 30s, but I never got a tattoo either. But I did learn to love television series. Back then, in the 80s and early 90s, a movie actress, which I was then, doing independent movies, studio movies, and television movies, you didn't wander very easily between the two mediums, television series and movies. That was sort of not done until really when Michael J. Fox did Back to the Future. He was on a television show at the time.
That's right.
That was a big deal. And he did so well, both in the series and the movies, that people started seeing, oh, maybe we can do both. And then, George Clooney, and he went from a series to movies. It just, back then it was very different.
Right. It wasn't the norm. Is it like it is today anyway? Yeah.
I think I would have, since I was so young, I did feel like an imposter in the beginning because I had grown up in a family where we weren't creative. We weren't expected to be creative, encouraged to be creative. It was all about intellect, like reading a lot and other things. Sports was important because we lived in the country, and doing good was important, but not being creative. And so it took me a while to really own. And I think that I was I was an actress and I was good and I deserved what I was getting.
Oh, wow. Cool.
If I was looking back, I wouldn't have wasted my time with, thinking that I shouldn't be here. And I also think because I grew up in a family where the emphasis on smarts was so strong, I had an agent once tell me, Alexandra, you don't have to try and convince people you're smart. People know that. You need to put your sexuality and sensuality forward. Because I'm a girl from Connecticut. We didn't do that. We just didn't do that. And I didn't, sex was for my boyfriend and it wasn't for the rest of the world. That was just wasn't for strangers. So
was that uncomfortable starting to put that forward when you got that suggestion? Did you listen to it? Did you do it?
Yes, I did start doing it. He said, yes, I did. And actually I got a role in I was in my early 20s at the time, where I played a prostitute, and I also had nudity. And I was it's a role that, yes, I'm very proud that I got, because I worked so hard to get it. It was a film with Jeff Bridges called 8 Million Ways to Die, and Andy Garcia and Rosanna Arquette. And it was written by Oliver Stone and
wow.
And Robert Towne. I mean, it was a had a lot of A-listers in it. And I played a prostitute, and, prostitute is all about sexuality and sensuality. So I had to really bring that out of me. And it was really a wonderful experience. And then I also worked on it I just worked on sexuality. I visited several houses of prostitution, actually, to try and develop that sense of confidence and things before the role, and for another role where I played a prostitute. So yeah, it was, I think I would have had a stronger career if I had not stayed in the nice girl, smart girl next door kind of role so much. I was really comfortable there. I was very.
You say you did that more than playing a prostitute, because the prostitute is probably not the nice girl role, right? But you just, yeah.
Well, back then, they really divided it. But I think just having sensuality on screen is important. Especially if you're playing a leading woman. And I didn't work on that side of me until a few years in, like when I was in my 23 or so. This role in 8 Million Ways to Die probably was the one where I started going, okay, I need to work on this side of me for it's not just for my boyfriend,
Right, because people need to feel you through the screen.
Yeah.
If you're not putting that. How did you just navigate the business and not become a total A-list a-hole? Like, you're the kindest human I know, and you have zero ego that's visible. I mean, you have an ego, because we all do, but it's not the ego that we think of, that you see and are disgusted by when you think of the big stars that just are, they just seem so uppity. But you didn't, to me, I haven't known you forever, but you're so humble. How did you not let it get to your head?
Well, because I had other things also in my life that were really important to me, like volunteering and activism. I always said that acting made me happy, but it was volunteering and making a difference in the world that really fed my soul. And a lot of the projects that I did, like Baywatch or the Lifetime movies I've starred in, or, they're not changing the world. They're making people happy to watch them and giving them some entertainment. But so I never, it wasn't completely my identity. It probably would have been better for my career if I had been more laser focused. I don't know, because it also made me a more interesting person, so you can inhabit characters better. I remember when I told my agent I wanted to take 9 months off to train for the Hawaii Ironman, because I'd been invited to do it, but I had never done a marathon before. I hadn't been on a bike since I was 15. The Ironman requires a 2.5 mile swim, which was fine, but it requires running a marathon and 112 miles. So I took off from
that. 112 sounds easier to me than the 2.5 mile swim.
That's funny. Yeah. But so I went to my agent and said, I'd like to take off 9 months. And he said, you know what? There's more to life than acting, Alexandra. Go ahead. A lot of women take off for having babies, and you're not going to have a baby. I was very clear about that. So, go ahead. And it's interesting. It turned out to actually help my career, because it was shortly after leaving Baywatch. And when you do a series like Baywatch, everyone thinks you're just this bimbo. And then you do something like the Ironman, which not many people were doing back in the 90s. I mean, there were a lot of professional athletes, but regular people weren't. Yeah. Then people look at you. And so for years after, instead of people going, oh, you're the one actress from Baywatch, which I get a lot, people were saying, oh, you're the one who did that Ironman or that triathlon. Nice. Yeah. So it was, it taught me to take risks like that, I guess.
You're the legit athlete from Baywatch, which the other ones looked like they were probably faking it, for sure. Didn't you've told me this, but I don't think you've told it on the show, that you got the role because they wanted a real swimmer. And you were obviously a real swimmer, or it was part of why you got the role.
Yes. It was definitely why they asked me to audition, because I didn't know him, but one of the producers, Greg Vodan, swam at the same pool as I did. And he'd heard I was a good swimmer, and they wanted swimmers on the show because they'd hired an actor. And when he got on the set, I think it was a he, he didn't know how to swim. And he thought that we had body doubles, and that is not the case. That show, we did most of our own stunts unless it involved falls, high falls or fire. So we did our swimming and rescuing and all that. So anyway, they definitely wanted a swimmer.
That is so cool. So the other ones were pretty legit swimmers then. The stars on the show alongside you.
A lot of them were swimmers. You had to have a swim test before after that person was, I think it was the season or something. They learned, and they made everyone have a swim test beforehand. I didn't have to do one because I guess I had proved myself, but
that's cool.
So now, if you went back in time, would you change anything, like for maybe our younger listeners or something? Is there anything you'd like to share?
I definitely am not a person that likes to practice regret. So there isn't anything that's like, oh, I would have changed this whole entire phase of my life or anything. There are a couple of things. I threw my mom out of the car at the Philadelphia airport. She had come to try and help me get help from my anorexia, and I wanted nothing to do with it, and threw her out of the car, and she rolled on the sidewalk. She didn't have a flight. She had to figure it out. I just said no more. And she got all bloody. Her knees got all bloody. And for some reason that I know that was a journey into healing. And I did a lot of creepy things as a young adult, but I don't think I would change them because they were a part of, but I don't think that had to happen. And I don't know, there's just something about that sticks in my mind so vividly. And I'm just so ashamed that I did that to her. So that's just an event, right? It's not like it's a whole, philosophical part of what I would do different. I don't think I would do anything different at all as far as the experiences and the phases and the healing in my life, because I feel like that's what takes us to the road of where we are now.
And have you talked to her about that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. She knows that. Yeah. And she kind of agrees. We could have not done that. It was pretty awful. It was pretty awful. I guess I'm ashamed of myself for it still to this day. And that's where maybe that's what comes in, that shame of why I wish I hadn't done that. Do you have some regrets?
Just overall that I hadn't worried so much about what other people thought and them wanting them to like me. So, and now being 60, I don't have that anymore. I don't care nearly so much about people liking me. I still have a little bit of that, but I think that's fine. I think it's good for people to be respectful and want other people to be happy and comfortable. And there are people who like to disrupt, and sometimes that's really counterproductive in relationships and in work. And I'm not like that at all. Just in activism, I want to disrupt.
Right, exactly. This is one area of our lives. You mentioned 60 a couple of times. What's the best thing about being 60? Definitely
that definitely that I don't care as much about what people think of me. They say that, I was telling Ian, I guess that, they say 60-year-old women are invisible. And I'm like, you know what? Bring it on. It's a superpower. I don't care. I've got what I want. Why do I need a bunch of strangers, looking at me? I don't.
Right. Well, and plus you had that for a large part of your life. Right. And I would imagine that got pretty intrusive and exhausting.
It was definitely made me on edge, and I was really happy with masks. during COVID. I love wearing masks in stores.
Now we get the truth because you were so obsessed with them.
And I still wear them. Yeah, I
know.
And I'm totally happy. I'm like,
You're like, I wore one the other day to the grocery store. You told me, and I was like, good God, it's like 2020.
Yes,
I love it.
I wear them at the grocery store. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Now, I wanted to ask you a question about marriage, because you have such a happy marriage with Kirk, who is a wonderful, wonderful man. But can you share with us, like, what do you account for having this very loving, happy, long marriage?
Well, we must be a good fit. I chose well, maybe. I mean, just for starters, I think sometimes, like, we all dated a lot of frogs before the prince and could have easily ended up with one of them. But we're a good fit for a lot of different reasons, and our personalities and our styles of how we want to live life. But I think the main thing that was really helpful early on in our marriage and learning how to be married, right, and coexist with someone 24/7. The second I started recognizing that when we were at odds with each other, that it was not all about me. Shocking. But that's sort of simply put, but people spend whole marriages complaining about what the other one does or does not do. I have some girlfriends that, and it's about us. And the second I started looking inward at what I was doing or not doing, things shifted for me in the marriage. I became a lot less blamey and started to learn how to look inward, because I'm not, I would think, well, I have to be doing something that's bothering him. It's not the 17 things that he's doing that's bothering me. I mean, I'm like a human too, right? So I'm not, and that was a critical shift. And every time that we're kind of at odds, I'm not always successful at it, but I have learned that it works if I am to look inwards and go, aha, that was not nice what I did, kind what I did, loving what I did, what I said, how I said it. And yeah, that was the big shift. Because it's just, marriage is just a series of moments, right? You're just living life together in closer quarters than anybody else, So it matters how you project, and it matters how you are behaving, even energetically with the other one. What about you? You've been married longer than I have.
Yes, we've been together 28 years. Wait, is that right? Yeah, 28 years. So
you're 10 years ahead of me in everything, because we've been together 20 years, but we've been married 18. So that's 10 years less than you guys.
I don't even, so marriage to me, I've never been a huge, blanket fan of marriage. So it's more about, how long we've been together. So that's why I don't count, but we married 5 years after we met. So, but I'm a fan of our marriage. But I'm not somebody who says, oh, you should get married, or,
right,
that kind of thing. No. I think picking the right partner is paramount. And I'm always amazed when people don't pick well. It's such an important decision. It affects your entire life, all aspects of it. And yet I find people, I do this because of love, and that is not enough. I think there has to be other aspects, because I've loved many men and I never wanted to marry them. And also I think that not having kids and not having money issues has really helped us a lot, because I have a lot of empathy for couples with kids or stress over money. That must just be huge. And then Ian is just amazing. He really is. We don't expect each other to be mind readers.
There you go.
Yeah. And we, in our marriage vows, we added a line to let you be you. So he really lets me be me, and I, all the stuff that we do separately, and he's so super supportive. And then I want him to be happy. So I want him to we have such a good relationship that one of the things that makes him happy is to be with me, but also I want him to do other things too. And he has friends and things that make him happy. So I think that has really helped us. But really, I really credit it to him being such a wonderful person. Really, I mean, I can't imagine being with one person for 28 years, except for him.
Right.
I just feel like he's perfect. I really do. I mean, my family does tease me about that, but we just, yeah. So
yeah, mine does too.
Don't dwell on the negative at all. I'm sure there's a lot of things he would want to change about me. The only thing I want to change about him that I am vocal about is I'd love it if he were vegan, totally vegan, because he's vegan at home. That isn't even it doesn't affect our relationship, except for I don't kiss him after he's eaten something that's either.
Right. Yeah. We've talked about that. The microbiome is not coming into your mouth. What is there like a time frame that we have to wait after he's had an egg or the next day or?
Yeah, right. It has to be a while.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a critical part of the fiber of your being, your activism. I mean, we've talked about it multiple times on the show, how many times you've been arrested, how hardcore you are, how much it means to you, how hard you work at it. And so I think people probably have a question of how do you have a successful, loving relationship with someone that sometimes eats your friends?
I recognize that my journey took from vegetarian when I was 14 to vegan when I was 40 something, 47, that it took me a long time. So how can I expect anybody else to do it? Like, how can I judge anybody for doing it differently? It's funny though. It's funny though. I do question myself, because if he was a racist, I would never be with him.
Interesting.
But for some reason, I'm okay with him eating animals, which is killing. So I guess, I just, it could be also our society is so forgiving of that it feels less.
Right. And like you should be more forgiving.
Yeah.
I mean, the racist comparison is intense because,
yeah, I would never accept that in him, even though he's
right. And that's not even killing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You and Kirk are both vegan. Did you go vegan together?
He was just shortly after me. He just is one of those personalities that's like, well, that makes sense. I mean, he's not an activist at all. Like there's not a bone in his body that's going to go out and do anything that you and I do. But it just made sense to him. And he also has hypercholesterolemia. So his cholesterol was getting really, really high, like in the 300s. And that was right around the time that I was making the change. And he's like, okay, I'm going to try with my diet to see if I could make some changes. And when he initially started eating almost entirely plants, it dropped 100 points in like 6 weeks. It was crazy. He still fights with it because it's genetic hypercholesterolemia, and it's not, there isn't a cure. So now that he's older, he has to take 5 milligrams a day of a statin and do the diet, and he keeps it in check. But I thought about it a lot. I feel really lucky because I don't know how I would stay with him. Like at least if he would at least have to do what Ian's doing, right? Like it's not in the house, you guys aren't having meals together, whereas there's animals there. The way you've described it to me is it happens more when he's out with his friends, because in our home, I mean, I just don't think I could have it in the refrigerator. In fact, moving into the holidays as we are now, I was thinking about people's experience with different family members and people that are entirely vegan for the animals tend to just really have a visceral response to if there's, a dead bird on the table or whatever it might be. And I'm always surprised sometimes at how I don't just eat with vegan people. I mean, at all. But I was with my family for Thanksgiving and we were in Mexico, and my nephew that's 15, we were just at a table and he ordered nachos and they came and I've never seen so much dead cow before on top of nachos. I mean, it was, and he was sitting next to me and I had to move. It just, sometimes it just shocks me because it was happening before and I just, kind of just is what it is. I love them. That's not their thing. And you just, I don't want to not be in my family because of my views and opinions on what is killing and what, but I looked over at my niece and I said, can you switch seats with me? And she's like, sure. She's like 9. She's like, okay. I literally had to get further away from it and I couldn't see. I thought, gosh, this is kind of wild how it pops in sometimes. And for those that are out there that are, getting ready to experience the more holidays and feeling fearful, I guess, I just want to say it's okay. We hear you. We love you. And it's okay if you need to move down a few chairs. It just is okay. I didn't feel bad about it. He didn't even notice because he's 15. So, it was great. My mom noticed, but yeah, the holidays are tough. And the rest of your family, like your brother and your sister, are vegan.
Yeah.
So
and my mom, she does have eggs in the morning, but she'll eat salmon sometimes. And she sort of jokes about when I go away that she and Ian are going to eat a lot of salmon together. We'll eat the
okay, Mom.
Yeah, but she eats so little. Actually, I don't think she's eaten fish in months, or at least I haven't seen it. Maybe she's been eating it with Ian on the sly. But yeah, so I can't look at the meat counter when I go in the supermarket. I don't know. I haven't, I haven't been very social here in Ashland with taking care of my mom. So really, I haven't had to deal with that much at all.
Yeah. So, yeah. No, that's nice. People that but you're a great example of, as you said, with Ian, you are very aware of your own journey. And now when you look back, it's like, what was I doing? You've made jokes about that on the podcast, but it's like, that was that journey for you, and his journey is his journey, and you love him regardless. And I
also want to bring people in, and I feel like I need to, give them birth so that they have room to come in to our space of plant-based and cruelty-free. So, okay. So let me ask you just maybe one question more. What do you think, Dots?
I'm open. I was going to end there, but you're always telling me end it whenever you want.
No, I want to end with something. I want to end with a thing like, is there anything in 2024 you're going to be working on for yourself?
I haven't come up with anything.
You're not
yet.
into New Year's resolutions.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not. You're right. You're totally right. I try to pretend like I sort of am sometimes, but the truth is it's the same. It's the same me from the 31st to the 1st. But they're really cool. And a lot of people do them, but I just don't, I'm not somebody who sits down and plans like a new routine. And it seems like that's a lot of what you do in the new year. Okay, now I'm going to do this in my life. And so, but I bet you have one.
I don't do New Year's resolutions like I have a New Year's. Ian and I used to go through and go all areas of life, like work.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
Health, that kind of thing. And talk about what we wanted to do in the new year. We haven't done that in a while. I just have an overall sort of desire to be aware, to listen more and be more patient, which, by the way, was my one for last year too, but I'm bringing it over because I don't think I did a very good job. One thing I am grateful for and looking forward to is more podcasts with you in 2024.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it as well. I have so much respect for you. I'm just always enamored with how incredibly kind you are, and at the same time, how fierce and fearless you are. I think that's a rare combo. I know it's a rare combo in people. So I admire you so much, and we're going to stay partners, people. Send us guest ideas. That's what we need. That's what I've learned after 250 some odd episodes, Alexandra, is it gets tougher and tougher to find guests. Yeah. So send us who you're wanting, who you're dying to hear us interview and have a conversation with. Because we did, well, the first 50, we just invited our friends. So that was easy. But yeah, it's tougher and tougher. And we're pretty willing to go in all sorts of different directions. So y'all that are listening, please help us, help ourselves. But thanks for listening.
And thank you, Dotsie, for, talking with me today.
Yeah, it was fun. Hope y'all enjoyed it. All right. Until next time, we'll be back next week. If you did not like this, with an actual guest. All right. Mwah.